Welcome back, guys. Today we're going to talk about pitch. So when we were tuning our instruments, we had to find and identify a pitch for your instrument. There are 4 strings on this instrument, and each string has a different pitch to it based on its frequency, based on some other scientific factors we'll talk about later on. But this right here is a violin. It's going to be tuned differently than the viola, than the cello, and the bass. They're all going to have similar strings, but sometimes the strings are a little bit different, hence by the size of the instrument, the length of the string, how tight it is, and the size of the string's thickness. On the violin, the strings are tuned from low to high, G, D, A, and E. Those are just going to be for the violin. If you saw the tuning video we did earlier, then you know the tuning already and how it works and how it's supposed to sound. Now, if you're not getting those pitches on your instrument, you're probably going through something like maybe the peg's too loose, and the string's too loose, or maybe it's too tight and it's about to snap on you. So what do you do when that happens? I'm going to use the D string, and I'm just going to push down on it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now we have a string that makes no sound. You see it move, but it doesn't play. So that's a really loose string, obviously. How do you know that you're playing a right pitch as you tighten it? Well, first let's talk about how we tighten it. We're going to grab the instrument in front of us and place it against our chest or our stomach here, as I like to do. Grab with your right hand, at least for the D string, up above on the neck where the nut is, and then you're going to take your left hand or whatever hand's next to the peg, and you're going to turn it away from you to tighten it. While you're also turning it away from you to tighten, pay attention to this string and push in on the peg slightly towards the peg box so that way the pressure stays consistent. If you start turning it and pull away, you won't get the string to stay in place. It'll slip back out. So let's try, and I'm going to turn it until it gets a little bit straighter. Now I'm only turning it a little bit, and I'm going to check it. Now, how do I check it if it's in tune? Well, so far it sounds okay. We might need a tuner. Here we have our Snarkman tuner. I'm going to place it on the bridge, like I showed you in the previous videos. Turn on the power. Now this has already been calibrated to 440 Hertz, and I'm going to pluck the D string first because that's the one that came out of tune. Currently, the D string is a little bit flat. That means it's still too loose. Now, there's 2 things you can do. You can either adjust it ever so slightly using the peg, or you can use the fine tuner. Now, don't overuse the fine tuner. The fine tuner is just for the small incremental parts. If you're looking at the Snark tuner, you notice there's a bunch of little sections. It's digitized. Those are cents. Now, that's what we use to identify how far it's flat or how far it's sharp, or how low in pitch it is, or how high pitch it is. So as I'm plucking, it is not so much that I have to use the peg and I have enough fine tuner left to actually adjust the pitch. So I'm going to turn it righty-tighty as I pluck to make sure it's in tune. All right, let's check the other strings, because once one string is out of tune, all the other elements that are holding the instrument together, or the strings in place, kind of move too. G is fine. A is a little flat. Cool. So normally it's going to readjust if it gets messed up, the strings that are next to it. So the strings that are right next to the D string on the violin are the G and the A string, which are going to be the most likely to have gotten a little flat or a little sharp depending on what happened to that string. And that's why we always want to check the other strings.